Use Leveler to monitor levels and to make precise changes to volume levels and panning. Imagine you have a recording that's just plain loud or perhaps simply too quiet. Perhaps you recorded audio from a live event, or you have a sample from an older cassette or vinyl that's really, really low. We often work with audio that really needs a volume boost before we can even dive in any deeper. So, though many plugins allow us to increase levels or gain, Leveler is specifically designed for this task. So you may notice that something like the multiband compressor, you can increase the gain, or perhaps the compressor, you can, of course, here increase the level, even using auto gain. And there are other ways of doing this, of course, through the limiter as well, with this outgain and so forth. But again, the Leveler is designed for this to avoid any other issues and to keep it simple. Sometimes we like to gain stage and have our levels increased or decreased spread across the board so that we don't have one massive increase or reduction in one place, right? So let's note this very important point. If you're using the Leveler in a master as we have here, make sure you put it at the end of the effects chain to monitor the final output levels. So Leveler can also be used at the top of an effect rack to adjust levels even before you add effects. So if you used it, let's say on an instrument track, such as here, let's just load one right here. What you want to make sure you avoid is to insert it above the actual track itself or the actual instrument itself. So let's just go on and drop one of these levelers here. You'll notice that though this track is playing, we have nothing happening here. But as soon as we move this down, you'll see that we'll have the levels now affected here. So this is super critical to know when you're actually using the leveler on an actual instrument, okay? That's super, super important. Now, do not let the leveler go beyond 0 decibels. Obviously, because otherwise your song may sound really distorted or crackly, which is, depending on how severe it is. This is called clipping. Now, we'll of course dive into soft clipping in other episodes, which we have already, but typically you want to avoid clipping, okay, with your overall mix. Now, there are 2 controls for Leveler, very simple. One is the level slider, which right here, and the other is the pan knob. Now, pretty simple. The level slider, let's pump this up a little bit. It allows you to adjust the level from negative infinity, which is essentially muted. You'll see negative infinity right there. We can drop this all the way down. And again, I have this on the master so that we can hear it very, very clearly. That's essentially muted, all the way up to plus 12 decibels. Now, I'm not going to go that loud for obvious reasons, right? But for now, let's just bring it to 0 to get a few more levels. You can, of course, double tap, double click to get to 0. And so again, we can go up to a max of plus 12 decibels. Now, this is super important to note. Pay attention. Each 6 decibel is approximately 2 times the starting level. So essentially, 12 decibels is 4 times the starting level. And then, of course, quite simply, pan is to adjust the level, to focus onto the right side, and of course to focus to the left side. Pretty simple controls, but really useful. Again, like I said, when you're using gain staging, you may not necessarily want to cram all of your increases or decreases of volume just by pumping up the gain here or pushing up the level on the compressor, or perhaps even a limiter, just maximizing it. You want to spread it out, and that's a great thing about the leveler. It doesn't really necessarily interfere with other effects, and it's quite simply a super simple tool that pretty much just shows you what you're doing. Perfect, in my view, for putting after the analyzer, which you could use to check your loudness. And so, essentially the level module on your master channel can help you get the best mixes for streaming services. Watch these videos on mastering LUFS, RMS, Peak, and True Peak right here in FL Studio Mobile. Everybody, again, winning with blends. Leave a comment with a link to your latest tracks, and let's win together.